My sister Valerie arrived at my tiny cold apartment and saw the empty refrigerator. "Martin," she whispered, horrified, "why are you living in poverty when your pension is $15,000 a month?" Later at a party I hosted, my own son Ryan proudly announced to all our guests, "I give all his money to my wife." That's when my sister took off her coat and did something that left my son completely paralyzed. Before I tell you how we got to that moment and the devastating truth I uncovered, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. My name is Martin. I'm 70 years old, and this is the story of how I lost everything and then found the truth. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people you trust the most, hit that like button so I know I'm not alone, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. It all began 2 years ago, the day I buried my wife, Diane. She was my rock for 45 years. When she died, the silence in our beautiful paid-off home in Sun City was deafening. But the silence I'm living in now is different. It's the silence of a cheap third-floor apartment on the outskirts of Phoenix. I'm standing in the kitchen, if you can even call it that. It's just a yellow-stained counter with a hot plate. The only light comes from the buzzing street lamp outside, filtering through the dirty window. It's November, and the cold in Arizona seeps right through the thin walls. The weather stripping on the window is cracked, just like everything else in my life. I open the refrigerator. The little light inside flickers, then holds. Inside there's half a carton of expired yogurt and a single slice of processed cheese. I close the door, my stomach twisting in hunger. I haven't had a real meal in 3 days. I sigh, my breath fogging in the cold air of my own apartment. My gaze lands on the kitchen table. There it is, a piece of paper, bright red, mocking me. It's the final cutoff notice from the electric company, APS. They're shutting off my power tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll be 70 years old, sitting in the dark and the cold, with an empty refrigerator. How did this happen? My name is Martin. I worked for 40 years as a senior aerospace engineer at Lockheed Martin. 40 years of complex designs, of six-figure salaries, of being respected. My pension. My pension alone is $15,000 a month. 15,000. I should be living like a king. I should be on a cruise ship, not staring at a utility bill I can't pay. But I don't see a dime of that money. 2 years ago, when Diane passed, I was a wreck. I couldn't think. I couldn't function. My son Ryan sat me down. He looked so concerned, so capable. "Dad," he said, his voice soft, "you're grieving. Let me handle everything. Let me take care of the finances. Just sign this power of attorney. I'll manage your investments. I'll pay your bills. You just rest." And I did. I signed it. I trusted him. He was my son. Now I'm staring at this red notice. My hands are shaking. Not just from the cold, but from the humiliation. I have to call him. I have to beg my own son for money to keep the lights on. I pick up my old flip phone. My fingers feel stiff as I dial his number. It rings once, twice. "Hey, Dad, what's up? I'm just stepping into a meeting." Ryan's voice is breezy, distant. He always sounds like he's walking quickly. I swallow my pride. The words get stuck in my throat. "Ryan," I start, my voice barely a whisper. "Son, I have a problem." "A problem? What's wrong?" He sounds annoyed. It's the electric bill, son. They sent a red notice. They're going to turn it off tomorrow." There's a long sigh on the other end. "Dad, we talked about this. Are you sure you paid it? Did I sent you the money for bills last week?" "You did." I'm confused. I check my bank app. My balance is $4.16. "Ryan, there's no money here. I don't have anything left." Another sigh, louder this time. "Damn it, Dad. You have to tell me when you're running low. How much is it?" $120, I whisper, ashamed. Fine, I'll sell it to you now. But Dad, you have to be more responsible with the budget I set for you. I'm moving millions around in your portfolio. I can't be worried about a $100 utility bill." "Okay." "Yes, son, I know. Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you. It's fine. I gotta run. Love you. He hangs up. I stare at the phone. He's moving millions, but I'm living on a budget so small that I can't afford electricity. I feel the familiar sting of tears, but I push them down. I've cried too much since Diane left. A moment later, my phone buzzes. $120. I immediately go online and pay the bill. The lights are safe for another month. But as I sit back down in the cold, dark room, I look at the picture of Diane on my nightstand. Oh, Diane, I whisper. What is happening to our family? That $120 covered the electric bill, but it didn't solve the hunger. My bank account was back down to almost nothing. The yogurt and cheese were gone. The next morning, the hunger was a sharp, demanding pain. I tried calling Ryan again. No answer. I tried his office line. It went straight to a generic voicemail. I tried Megan. Her phone was, as always, turned off or set to silent. I left messages. Ryan, son, I just need a little money for groceries, just to get through the week. Please call me back. The silence was my only reply. I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't starve. I grabbed my keys, my wallet still holding the useless debit card, and drove. My old 1998 Ford Taurus sputtered to life, the check engine light glowing faithfully, just like it had for the last 5 years. I drove to the Fry's Food Supermarket on Bell Road. It's not the upscale AJ's or Whole Foods that Ryan and Megan shop at. It's where regular people go. It's where I belonged now. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, debating if this was even worth the effort. But the hunger won. I walked inside, the automatic doors sliding open with a weary sigh. I kept my head down, avoiding eye contact. I felt like a thief, even though I was just trying to buy food. I grabbed a basket, not a cart. I only needed enough for tonight. I walked down the aisles. Everything looked expensive. Fresh meat, vegetables, cheese. I kept walking. I went to the canned goods aisle. Campbell's soup, 99 cents on sale. I grabbed one. Chicken noodle. It felt heavy in my hand. I went to the bread aisle. The fresh bakery bread smelled wonderful, but it was $4. I went to the end of the aisle, to the discount rack. A loaf of store-brand white bread nearing its expiration date was marked down. $1.50. I grabbed it. I looked in my basket. A can of soup and old bread. I felt a wave of dizziness. I needed something more. Maybe some protein. I went to the dairy section and found the cheapest possible eggs. $2.99. No, too much. I put them back. I went back to the canned aisle. A tin of generic tuna. $1. I added it. I walked to the checkout. I felt the eyes of the other shoppers on me. They probably just saw an old man buying dinner. But I felt like they saw a failure. A fraud. A man who was supposed to be a wealthy retiree but couldn't afford eggs. There was only one person in line ahead of me. A young mother with a cart full of food and 2 noisy children. She paid with a bright blue EBT card. Food stamps. She had no shame, just efficiency. I envied her. It was my turn. The cashier, a tired-looking woman, didn't even look up. "Find everything okay?" she asked, her voice monotone. I put my items on the belt. The can of soup, the old bread, the tin of tuna. $8.50, Ra, she said. My heart was pounding. Maybe Ryan had put some money in. Maybe the Zelle transfer for the electric bill had been more than $120. Maybe there was something left. I inserted my debit card into the chip reader. My hand was shaking. I entered my PIN. The machine beeped. A long, loud, terrible beep. I looked at the screen. One word in bright red letters: declined. My blood ran hot, flushing my entire face. I could feel the heat in my ears. "Oh," I stammered. That's strange. It must be a mistake with the chip." Can I, can I try swiping it? The cashier sighed, annoyed, but she nodded. I swiped the card. The machine beeped again. Declined. I don't understand, I said, my voice cracking. My son. He manages my account. There should be money in there. The woman behind me in line, the one with the full cart, let out an impatient tisk. The cashier just stared at me. Sir, it's declined. Do you have another way to pay? I fumbled through my wallet, knowing it was empty. A few old receipts. My expired driver's license. A picture of Diane. No cash. No other cards. No, I whispered. I'm sorry. I have to put these back. I didn't even wait for her reply. I turned and walked quickly, almost running out of the store. I left the soup, the bread, and the tuna on the counter. I pushed through the doors and into the bright, unforgiving Arizona sunlight. I got into my car and locked the doors. And then I just sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I was past tears. I was just empty and cold. Declined. I am Martin, a senior engineer. My pension is $15,000 a month. My son is managing my millions. And I was just declined for an $8 can of soup. Ryan wasn't just managing my money. He wasn't just protecting my assets. He was starving me. The humiliation burned away the confusion. It burned away the sadness. All that was left was a cold, hard rage. He said he was in a meeting. He said he was busy. He was busy spending my money while I was being publicly shamed at a grocery store. I looked at my hands on the wheel. These hands built guidance systems for satellites. These hands raised a sun. And now these hands were empty. No more phone calls. No more begging. I turned the key. The old engine roared in protest, then settled. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going back to my cold, empty apartment. I was going to Scottsdale. I was going to my son's house. I was going to get answers. It took me 40 minutes to drive from my world to his. 40 minutes for the burning, humiliating rage to cool down into a cold, heavy dread. My old Taurus sputtered as I pulled onto his pristine paved street in North Scottsdale. The houses here weren't just houses. They were compounds, sprawling desert-colored palaces hidden behind iron gates and towering saguaro cacti. I parked my rusty 1998 Taurus on the street, feeling like a piece of trash that had blown into paradise. I didn't dare pull into his gleaming paver stone driveway. A brand new white Maserati Ghibli was parked right in front of the 3-car garage. A car that easily costs over $100,000. I'd seen it before, but today, after being declined for a can of soup, it felt like a slap in the face. I walked up the stone pathway, my shoes scuffing the perfect tile. Through the massive ornate glass front doors, I could see my daughter-in-law, Megan. She was in expensive athletic wear, the kind Diane always said cost more than a business suit. She wasn't exercising. She was standing with her arms crossed, directing a team of 3 landscapers who were planting new, exotic-looking cacti along the walkway. I didn't bother knocking. I pulled the ornate iron handle. It was locked. Martin had to ring the doorbell of the house my money had almost certainly helped buy. Megan saw me through the glass. I watched her face twist just for a second into pure annoyance before she smoothed it into a fake, bright smile. The buzzer sounded and the heavy door clicked open. Martin. What a surprise, we weren't expecting you. Is Ryan home? Megan, I asked, my voice sounding rougher than I intended. He's in his office working. You know how it is, he's incredibly busy, Dad. She always called me Dad, but it sounded like an insult coming from her, a title without meaning. Ryan emerged from his office, a sleek glass room I could see from the foyer. He was holding his cell phone to his ear, looking intense. Look, just move the assets. I don't care about the short-term hit. Just get it done. He saw me. He stopped short. Dad, what's wrong? You look terrible." He clicked off the phone, his expression shifting from ruthless CEO to concerned son in a fraction of a second. I couldn't hold Megan's gaze. I looked past her at my son. The shame washed over me, extinguishing the last of my rage, replacing it with the cold humiliation of a beggar. "Ryan," I said, and I hated how my voice shook. I'm so sorry to bother you at work, but my card. It was declined. At Frice." Ryan's face tightened. He shot a quick, annoyed glance at Megan, who just rolled her eyes and turned back to the landscapers. He put his arm around my shoulder, guiding me toward the front door, away from her earshot. "At Frice," he repeated as if the store itself was the offense. "Yes," I whispered, "for $8. And the electric company. They sent the final notice, the one I called you about. The power was going to be cut off tomorrow." Ryan put his hands up, letting out a short, forced laugh. Dad, stop, breathe." His voice was that smooth, professional tone he used when he was explaining things he understood and I didn't. "You're worrying over nothing. You're getting worked up again. Remember what Dr. Evans said about your blood pressure? But the card, Ryan, and the power? It's the market, Dad. The market is incredibly volatile right now." He sounded so confident, so reassuring. "I had to act fast. I moved the bulk of your assets, the legacy funds we talked about, into a series of secure long-term trust funds. They're protected. They're safe. But they are not liquid. It just means the checking account, the slush fund, is running a little low right now. It's just simple asset management. It's for your own good. Trust funds. Legacy funds. I designed guidance systems for satellites, but he made me feel stupid, like a child who couldn't understand. "I understand that, son. I do," I lied. "But I don't have any food," I whispered. The words felt like acid in my mouth. I don't have money for food. I couldn't buy a can of soup. Ryan's face softened into a mask of perfect pity. "Oh, Dad. God, that is my fault. 100% my fault." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a thick, dark green wallet. Crocodile skin. It looked expensive. He opened it. It was stuffed with $100 bills. I hadn't seen that much cash in one place in years. He pulled out 5 of them. $500. "Here," he said, pressing the crisp bills into my trembling hand. "My mistake. I completely forgot to transfer your weekly allowance. Allowance, I am 70 years old. I worked my entire life, and I get an allowance. See," he said, patting my shoulder, his smile back in place. "Everything is fine. Everything is under control. I'm managing it. You just focus on resting, okay? Don't worry your head about these little things. That's what I'm here for." I looked at the $500 in my hand. It felt like dirty money. It felt like a payoff. But it was also survival. It was food. It was medicine. It was electricity. "Okay, son," I said, my voice quiet, as I folded the bills into my pocket. "Okay. I trust you." As I walked back to my rusty Taurus, I saw the white Maserati again. I saw Megan laughing with the landscapers. I saw the massive, beautiful house. And I felt a cold, deep certainty that my son, my own son, was lying straight to my face. I looked down at the $500, then back up at my son. Before I could say anything, Megan drifted over. She had been supervising the landscapers, which mostly meant standing near them looking expensive. She put a perfectly manicured hand on Ryan's arm. She was wearing a small quilted black purse on a gold chain. Even I, a 70-year-old engineer, knew what that was. A Chanel bag. My late wife Diane had pointed one out in a magazine years ago, laughing. "That thing costs more than our first car, Martin," she'd said. This one looked brand new. "Martin," Megan said, her voice dripping with an artificial sweetness that felt sharp like honey poured over glass. You really gave Ryan a scare. He worries about you so much. I just nodded, my eyes fixed on the cash in my hand. You have to remember, we're doing all of this to protect your legacy. She continued, squeezing Ryan's arm. You're retired. This is your time to not worry about boring things like bank transfers or market volatility. That's Ryan's job now. She gave me a wide, bright, toothy smile that never quite reached her cold eyes. Remember, you gave Ryan the power of attorney specifically so you wouldn't have to deal with any of this. Her words hit me harder than the declined card at the store. The power of attorney. Of course I remembered. How could I forget? It was 2 years ago, just 3 weeks after Diane's funeral. The house was still filled with sympathy cards I couldn't bring myself to open. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where Diane and I had coffee every morning for 45 years. I was just staring at a stack of unopened mail, utility bills, bank statements, condolence letters. It all looked like gibberish. I couldn't even make myself toast, let alone manage an estate. I was broken. Ryan had come over looking so strong, so capable in his dark suit. He'd sat across from me, his face a mask of pure, loving concern. Dad, he'd said, his voice gentle. You're grieving. You're in no shape to handle all this. He was right. I couldn't even handle getting dressed. He'd pushed a thick stack of papers across the table. This is a durable power of attorney, Dad. It just lets me handle the bills for you. Pay the house taxes, manage the investments, talk to the accountants. It lets me take the burden off your shoulders, so you can just heal. A burden. That's exactly what it felt like. An impossible, crushing weight. Just sign here, he'd said, pointing with a sleek, expensive pen. And here. And here. I didn't read a single word. I just signed. I signed my name over and over. I signed away my pension, my investments, my home. I signed away 40 years of hard work, of saving, of planning for a comfortable retirement with Diane. I signed it all away just so I wouldn't have to think. I signed it because he was my son, and I trusted him. Now, standing in the glaring Scottsdale sun, in the driveway of his palace, that memory felt toxic. You're right, I mumbled, looking down. I did sign it. Exactly. Ryan jumped back in his professional confidence fully restored. He saw my doubt, my weakness, and he pounced on it. It's all perfectly legal, Dad. I'm just doing what you asked me to do. I'm protecting the assets. Like I said, the market is fluctuating, so I had to move everything into those long-term trusts. It's smart. It's safe. He gestured toward my old sputtering Taurus. Now look, I will call the electric company right now, and I will rip them a new one for their billing error. It's definitely a system glitch on their end. You just go home. Go rest. Okay. He pointed to the $500 still clutched in my fist. And use that to buy yourself a nice steak dinner. You deserve it. He was dismissing me, like a child. Here's your allowance, old man. Go buy yourself a treat, and leave the adults to talk. Megan leaned in and I flinched. She gave me an air kiss that landed somewhere near my ear. I could smell her perfume. It was heavy and expensive. It smelled like my money. We'll see you Sunday for dinner, right, Martin? We're having brisket. Right, I mumbled. Sunday. I walked back to my car, the cash feeling like a hot coal in my pocket. I got in the worn fabric of the seat familiar against my back. I turned the key. The engine coughed, then finally turned over. The check engine light flickered on. My faithful companion. I drove away from their perfect manicured street. As I drove, the self-doubt began to creep in, thick and suffocating. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe I was just an old man who didn't understand the new market. Maybe I was getting paranoid. He's a financial professional. I'm just an old engineer. What do I know about long-term trusts and asset management? He sounded like he knew what he was doing. I felt a wave of shame. I had just driven to my son's house and embarrassed him. I had accused him, or at least implied that he was letting me starve. I had made a scene in front of his wife and the landscapers. All because I didn't understand the complexities of modern finance. I was the fool. I was the burden. I gripped the $500 in my pocket. He did give me money. He was going to call the electric company. Megan did invite me for brisket. I was the problem. I was the senile old man, just like they thought. I drove back to my tiny cold apartment, the rage gone, replaced by the crushing heavy weight of my own foolishness. I was so tired. That $500 in my pocket felt like a shield. It was the proof that I was the fool, that I was the paranoid old man, and that Ryan was the competent son managing a complex situation I no longer understood. For 1 week, I was fine. I took that crisp cash and paid the electric bill immediately. I drove back to the Fry's food store, my face burning with the memory of my last visit. This time I paid with a $100 bill. I bought real food, ground beef, eggs, milk, vegetables, and real coffee. I even bought a small bottle of my lisinopril, the cheap heart medication, to tide me over. The $500 evaporated faster than I could believe. $200 for groceries, $120 for the electricity, $50 to put gas in the Taurus just so I wouldn't feel trapped. I tried to stretch the remaining $130. I ate small meals. I kept the thermostat low, wearing my old coat inside the apartment as the November nights grew colder. About 8 or 9 days after I'd seen Ryan, it happened. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I couldn't breathe. It felt like a heavy, wet towel was wrapped around my chest. It wasn't the searing pain of a heart attack, not yet, but it was the warning, the familiar cold dread. I stumbled to the bathroom and fumbled for my pill organizer on the sink. The slot for my anticoagulant, my expensive blood thinner, Xarelto, was empty. I'd run out 2 days ago. I had been trying to stretch the prescription, taking 1 pill every other day, trying to save money, trying not to bother Ryan. What a stupid thing to do. My cheap lisinopril was running low too. I didn't wait for morning. I got dressed in the dark, my hands shaking so badly I could barely button my shirt. I drove the Taurus to the 24-hour CVS on Cactus Road. The fluorescent lights inside were blinding. They made my skin look gray sick. I walked straight to the pharmacy counter in the back. A young woman, her name tag read Brenda, looked up from her computer. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes," I panted, leaning heavily on the counter. I need my refills. Martin, my heart medication." She typed, her face professional and calm. "Okay, Mr. Martin. I see 2 refills ready for you. The lisinopril and the Xarelto." "Yes, that's it. The Xarelto. I need it. Now." "Okay, just give me a few minutes." I waited by the counter, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to breathe normally. I watched her count the pills, put them in the familiar orange bottles, print the labels. It felt like an eternity. "All right, Mr. Martin," she said, returning and placing 2 bottles in a white paper bag. "That will be $280.45. My stomach dropped. $280. "Yes, sir. The Xarelto is the expensive one. Your copay is $260. The lisinopril is only $20. "Oh, right. Of course." I fumbled for my debit card. The card Ryan managed. The card he said should have money in it. The allowance. I put the card into the reader. My hand was unsteady. The machine was silent for a long, agonizing moment. Then the beep. The same beep as at the grocery store. The same horrifying final sound. Declined. "No," I whispered. My voice didn't sound like my own. "No, that's impossible. That can't be. My son, he just put money in the account. He handles everything. Can you please try it again?" Brenda, the pharmacist, looked at me with an expression I was starting to hate pity. "Sir, I ran it twice. It says insufficient funds." "But he promised," I said, my voice rising in panic. He said he was managing it. He said it was just a glitch. He just gave me cash. Brenda looked around. The store was empty at 3 in the morning, thank God. She lowered her voice. Sir, I'm sorry. The payment is not going through. Do you have another way to pay? I shook my head, feeling the cold sweat on my forehead. The tightness in my chest was getting worse. I needed that medication. She looked at the 2 bottles on the counter. She looked at my gray, desperate face. Look, she said gently. The lisinopril. That one is only $20. The Xarelto is $2.60. She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Do you want to maybe just take the lisinopril for now, and you can come back for the other one when you sort out your funds? Come back for the other one. The other one. The life-saving one. The one that kept my blood from clotting and my heart from failing. She was asking me to choose which medication I could afford not to take. My son, with his Maserati and his crocodile wallet, had put me in a position where I had to choose between my cheap blood pressure pill and the medicine that was actually keeping me alive. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Brenda quietly took the white paper bag, opened it, and removed the bottle of Xarelto. She put it back on the shelf behind her. She rang up the new total. $20.12, she said, her voice flat. I slid my card in again. I prayed. Approved. The small amount of allowance Ryan had left me was just enough for the cheap pills, but not enough for the ones that mattered. I grabbed the small bag containing only the lisinopril and walked out. I didn't say thank you. I couldn't. I stumbled out into the cold night air and got back in my car. I sat in the dark parking lot, staring at the little white bag on the passenger seat, and I realized the truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't market volatility. Ryan knew exactly how much my medications cost. He knew what I needed to live. He had intentionally left just enough money in my account for food and the cheap pills, but not enough for my real medicine. He wasn't just controlling my money. He was controlling my life. He was letting me get sick. The $500 wasn't an act of generosity. It was a leash, and it had just run out. My gut feeling from before the cold dread was right. My son was not protecting me. He was actively, methodically hurting me. And as I sat there, the tightness in my chest growing, I knew I couldn't call him. I couldn't beg. This time I had to do something else. I sat there in the CVS parking lot, the little white bag, with its one cheap bottle feeling heavy as lead on the passenger seat. The tightness in my chest was real. It was a physical warning, the kind Diane always warned me never to ignore. My first instinct, even after everything, was denial. Maybe I misunderstood the budget. Maybe Ryan didn't know the Xarelto was that expensive. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking, but this time from anger, not just cold. I dialed Ryan, straight to voicemail. Hey, you've reached Ryan. I'm busy making things happen. Leave a message. Making things happen. I hung up and dialed again. Voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail. I dialed Megan. Her phone didn't even ring. It went straight to a generic automated, "This user has not set up their voicemail." I hit redial for Ryan. Voicemail, again, and again, and again. I must have called 10 times in 3 minutes. My desperation was turning into raw panic. I looked at the dark dashboard of my car. I was 70 years old. I was a senior engineer. And I was sitting alone in a parking lot at 3 in the morning, wondering if I was about to have a heart attack because my son wouldn't pick up the phone. My mind went to a dark place. What are they doing? Why won't they answer? I pictured them asleep in their massive climate-controlled mansion in Scottsdale, their phones on silent while I was sitting here helpless. A darker thought crept in. Do they want this to happen? If I'm gone, that power of attorney, Does it make things easier for them? Am I worth more to them dead than alive? The thought was so cold, so monstrous, that it shocked me back to reality. I couldn't just sit here and die. I had to do something. There was one last number. One person I hadn't called in months. My sister Valerie. I hesitated. Ryan's voice echoed in my head from our last conversation about her. Dad, I know. You love Aunt Valerie, but she complicates things. She's judgmental. She doesn't understand modern finance. Just let me handle things, okay? Don't bother her with this stuff. It just makes her worry, and then she stresses everyone out. He had isolated me. From my money, from my health, and even from my own family. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through my contacts. Valerie. I pressed the call button before I could change my mind. It was after 2 a.m. in Denver. She was probably asleep. She wouldn't answer. She answered on the second ring. Martin? Her voice was instantly awake, sharp. She always answered the phone like she was expecting an emergency. What is it? Are you okay? The sound of her voice, strong, clear, sane, broke something in me. All the fear, the humiliation from the grocery store, the terror from the pharmacy, it all came rushing up. Martin, talk to me, what's wrong? I couldn't speak. I just made a sound, a choked sob. Val, I finally managed, my voice breaking apart. Val, I'm in trouble. I'm in real trouble. The change in her tone was immediate. It went from concerned sister to chief financial officer in 1 second. The warmth was gone, replaced by cold, sharp steel. Where are you? Are you hurt? I'm in my car. At a CVS, I stammered. Val, I don't have any money. I can't buy my medicine. Silence. A dead, heavy silence on the line. I heard her take a deep, controlled breath. What do you mean you can't buy your medicine? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. What about your pension, the Lockheed pension? It's $15,000 a month, Martin. Where is your money? And just like that, I confessed. The whole shameful story poured out of me. I gave it to Ryan. I cried, the tears finally coming hot and angry. I gave him the power of attorney after Diane died. He said he would manage it. He said he was protecting me. But the card is always declined, Val. He gives me an allowance, and it's not enough. I couldn't buy my heart medicine. He just let me. That son of a bitch. Her voice was pure ice. She wasn't talking to me. She was making a declaration. Martin, she said, her voice snapping back into focus, all business. Listen to me. I want you to do 2 things. First, I want you to drive back to your apartment and lock the door. Do not call Ryan. Do not call Megan. Do not talk to them. Okay. Second, I want you to send me your address. Right now. What, Val? No, you don't have to. I needed someone to talk to. Martin, I am not talking. I am acting. I am booking the first flight out of Denver to Phoenix. It leaves at 5 a.m. I will be at your apartment in 4 hours. Do you understand me? Val, it's too much. Hang up the phone, Martin, she yelled. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Hang up, send me your address, and lock your door. I will see you in 4 hours. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my car. The panic was gone. The terror was gone. Something new was creeping in. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't alone. Valerie was coming. The CPA was coming. And hell was coming with her. I drove back from the CVS, the eastern sky just beginning to turn a faint, sick gray. I fumbled with the key, my hands still shaking. I got inside and locked the deadbolt just as Valerie had told me. I didn't turn on the light. I just sat on my lumpy mattress in the cold and stared at the red cutoff notice on the table. I didn't sleep. I just waited. The tightness in my chest eased, not because of the cheap lisinopril I'd swallowed dry in the car, but because I knew she was coming. 4 hours, she'd said. It felt like 4 years. I must have dozed off, because I was jolted awake by a sound I never hear in this building. A solid, heavy thud of a new car door. Not the usual rattle of my neighbor's old beaters. An Uber. I scrambled to the window, pulling back the dirty curtain. A black sedan was idling at the curb. And then I saw her. My sister Valerie. She stepped out of the back seat, pulling a sleek, hard-shell carry-on suitcase. Even at 6:30 in the morning, after what must have been a frantic rush to the airport, she looked like she was walking into a boardroom. She wore a dark gray pantsuit, perfectly pressed, and low, expensive-looking heels that clicked with authority on the cracked pavement. She paid the driver, looked up at my building, and I could see the disgust on her face even from 3 stories down. She didn't look tired. She looked furious. I rushed to the door, fumbling with the deadbolt. I pulled it open just as she raised her hand to knock. She stood there in the dim hallway. "Martin," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled. She looked right at me. Her eyes, sharp and clear, even at this hour, scanned me from head to toe. She took in my wrinkled clothes from the day before, my uncombed hair, the gray, sick pallor of my skin. Then she looked past my shoulder into the room I called home. She didn't move for a full 10 seconds. She just stood on the threshold, staring. I could see her nostrils flare slightly. I knew that look. That was her CPA look. That was the look she got right before she tore apart a flawed balance sheet. "Martin," she said again, her voice low and dangerous. "Good God. What is this place?" She stepped inside, pulling her suitcase over the worn-down threshold. The wheels rumbled loudly on the cheap, cracked linoleum. She didn't wait for me to invite her in. She just advanced. She was an invading force in my tiny, sad world. "Why are you living here?" she demanded, her eyes darting everywhere. She saw the peeling paint on the walls. She saw the single flickering light bulb in the ceiling fixture. She saw the stack of unwashed dishes by the greasy hot plate. "What is that? That smell? Is it mildew? Is it old food?" I just stood by the open door, my shame making me feel heavy as lead, the cold morning air rushing in behind me. "Val, it's just temporary," I whispered. Ryan said he's investing my money." She ignored me. She walked straight to the small beige refrigerator that hummed loudly in the corner, the one that came with the apartment. She pulled the handle. The door opened with a sticky, sucking sound. She stared inside. She stared at the single expired yogurt, at the hard, shriveled half-slice of processed cheese. She stared at the vast, empty, yellow-white space. I saw her shoulders tense up under her expensive suit jacket. She slowly, deliberately closed the refrigerator door. She turned around to face me, and her expression was terrifying. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't pity. It was a cold, calculating fury I hadn't seen since our father passed away, and she had to deal with the probate lawyers who were trying to cheat us. "He's investing it," I whispered again, the excuse sounding pathetic and childish even to my own ears. "Ryan said he's investing it, that the market is volatile." "Investing." Her voice shot out like a gunshot, so loud it echoed in the tiny bare room. "Investing." She dropped her suitcase. It hit the floor with a heavy, solid thud. "Brother," she said, stepping right up to me, her eyes boring into mine. "You worked at Lockheed Martin for 40 years. You were a senior engineer. Your pension, Martin, your pension is $15,000 a month. I know I helped you set up the damn rollover account." Her voice was rising, trembling with rage. "You should be on a beach in Hawaii. You should be on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean. You should be traveling the world." She pointed a finger at the red notice on my table. "You should not be living in a rat hole. You should not be worried about a $20 pill. You should not be living like a like a beggar. I, I know, Val, but he signed the POA. I don't care what he said, she snapped, cutting me off. She didn't waste another second. She turned her back to me, marched to the wobbly card table I used for a desk, and snapped open a briefcase that was attached to her suitcase. She pulled out a sleek silver laptop. She set it on the table, the high-end machine looking absurdly out of place like a diamond on a trash heap. She popped it open. The screen flared to life instantly. "We are not waiting. We are not talking. We are acting," she said, her fingers already flying across the keyboard. She looked up at me, her eyes void of all pity, filled only with cold, hard purpose. "Your bank login, Martin. Chase private client. What is the username and password now?" I stared blankly at her silver laptop. The question snapped me out of my shame. "Login," I stammered. I don't have it, Val. Ryan changed everything. 2 years ago. He said it was for enhanced security. He said he'd handle the online stuff. I just let him. He said it was safer if I didn't have access in case I got confused. Valerie's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. She didn't look at me. She just stared at the login screen. I could see the muscles in her jaw clenching. "He locked you out of your own account," she said, each word a perfectly spaced, cold stone. "For your protection. He said it was easier, Val. I didn't want to deal with it after Diane." "Stop," she commanded. She held up one hand. "Stop talking. Stop making his excuses for him." She closed the laptop. The quiet, expensive click echoed in the room. She pulled her cell phone from her pocket, a new sleek iPhone that looked like a weapon in her hand. She stood up. "Fine," she said. "We do this the other way." She scrolled through her contacts and found Ryan's number. She pressed the speakerphone button, her thumb hitting the glass with a sharp, deliberate tap. The phone rang once, twice. "Hey, you've reached Ryan. I'm busy making things happen. Leave a..." Valerie hung up and dialed again immediately. "Hey, you've reached Ryan." She hung up. She dialed Megan. "The user you have dialed has not..." She hung up. "He's not answering." I whispered, a strange, sick feeling of, "I told you so," rising in me. "Oh, he'll answer," Valerie said, her voice grim. She dialed Ryan's number one more time. It rang and rang. Just as the voicemail was about to pick up, the call connected. "Geez, Dad, what is it now?" Ryan's voice, exasperated and annoyed, filled the tiny apartment. He hadn't even checked the caller ID. He just assumed it was me, the nuisance, calling again. There was a beat of pure, cold silence. "Hello, Ryan." The change on the other end was electric. I could hear a sharp intake of breath, the sound of a chair scraping on a hardwood floor, a muffled, "Who?" "It's your Aunt Valerie," she said, her voice like ice. "Aunt Valerie." His voice was suddenly slick, falsely cheerful, the professional. "Aunt Val, what a surprise. Are you in Phoenix? You should have let me know. I'm actually just heading into a major merger meeting. I'm swamped." Valerie cut him off, her voice slicing through his excuses. "Cut the crap. I'm at your father's apartment, and he doesn't have money to buy his life-saving heart medication." Dead silence. The fake cheer evaporated. I could hear his breathing, suddenly shallow. What are you talking about?" he stammered. "He's fine. I just sent him money. He's just confused, Aunt Val. He gets worked up." "I am looking at an empty refrigerator, Ryan," Valerie said, her voice dangerously low. "I am looking at a power cutoff notice, and I am looking at my brother who looks like he hasn't eaten a real meal in months. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to email me the official bank-generated PDF statements from Chase Private Client for every single one of his accounts. I want the last 12 months. I want them now. Not in an hour. Not after your meeting." "Aunt Val, you don't understand," Ryan sputtered, his voice rising in panic. That's private financial information. It's complicated." There are trusts, there are investments. I can't just... You're not the power of attorney I am. I'm managing it. He's fine. Ryan. Valerie's voice was so cold, it made me flinch. I am a certified public accountant with 40 years of experience. I know the smell of fraud when it's rotting in my own family. You have exactly 10 minutes to send me those statements. If I do not have them, or if you send me one more of your homemade fake-ass Excel spreadsheets, I am hanging up and my next call will be to the Phoenix Police Department, and I will file a report for felony elder financial abuse. I am not kidding. You can't do that, he shrieked. This is a family matter. You'll ruin me. 10 minutes, Ryan, Valerie said. You're ruining him. Your father is sick, and you are starving him to death. You think I care about your reputation. The clock is ticking. No, wait, don't call the police, God. Okay. Okay, don't do anything. I'll send it. I'll send it right now. It's just a simple misunderstanding. I'll send it. He hung up. I was shaking. I had never heard anyone talk to Ryan like that. I had never heard Valerie so lethal. Now we wait, she said. She opened her laptop again. The screen cast a blue glow on her grim face. We sat in silence. The only sound was the click-clack of her nails on the keyboard as she fired off emails to contacts I didn't know she had. Almost 15 agonizing minutes passed. My phone, still in her hand, buzzed. An email from Ryan. He sent it, I said, my voice hoarse. Let's see, Valerie said. She clicked the attachment. It wasn't a bank PDF. It was a Word document typed out. A simple summary. Retirement fund, 1.2 us. Checking 15,000. All accounts healthy. Valerie just stared at it. She didn't say anything. She just stared. Then she let out a short, sharp, humorless laugh. He really thinks I'm an idiot, she whispered. She turned the laptop to me. Martin, look at this. This isn't a bank statement. This is garbage. It's a high schooler's attempt at a forgery. There are no account numbers, no transaction IDs. It's just numbers on a page. She turned the laptop back. He's not just hiding something, Martin. She looked me right in the eye, her face pale with a new dawning horror. He's hiding everything. He's stalling. Valerie didn't waste a breath. He thinks we're stupid. He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks he can stall me with this garbage. She slammed the laptop shut. We're done waiting for him to cooperate. We're going straight to the source. She picked up her phone again, her thumb flying across the screen. What's the bank, Chase private client, you said? Yes, I whispered, my heart pounding. The number is on the back of my debit card. I fumbled for my wallet, my fingers feeling thick and useless. I pulled out the card, the one that had been declined, the symbol of my humiliation, and read the toll-free number off the back. Valerie dialed. She put it on speakerphone again. The air in the tiny apartment was thick with dread. A smooth, professional voice answered. Thank you for calling Chase Private Client. This is Maria. How can I assist you today? Hello, Maria. Valerie started, her voice calm and authoritative. I am here with my brother, the account holder, Martin. We need to get a full verbal statement of all his accounts and recent transactions. He will provide authorization. Of course, Maria said. Sir, can you please confirm your full name and date of birth? I did. I spelled out my name, gave my birthday. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Now, for security, I need to ask you one of your challenge questions. What is the name of your mother's first pet? I froze. My mind went completely blank. My mother's pet. I looked at Valerie, bewildered. My mother hated animals. We never had a pet growing up. She said they were dirty. Sir, this is the question on your file, Maria said, her professional tone unwavering. I don't know, I said, panic rising. I don't know the answer. My son Ryan set this up. A horrible thought struck me. Oh, wait. Does he mean his mother-in-law Megan's mother, or maybe his mother Diane? No, Diane didn't. Oh, maybe he means Megan's pet. Her little white dog, Try Fluffy. I'm sorry, sir, Maria said, her voice turning cold. That is not correct. For your security, I cannot proceed. No, wait, I pleaded. Valerie snatched the phone from my hand. Her voice was pure steel. Maria, my name is Valerie. I am a certified public accountant, and I am sitting here with my brother Martin. We have reason to believe his son Ryan, who is his power of attorney, has fraudulently changed his security questions and is actively committing elder financial abuse. I am formally reporting this to Chase right now. Connect me to your fraud department and a senior manager, immediately. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then a flurry of clicks. One moment, ma'am. Please hold. We were on hold for what felt like an eternity. I was pacing my chest tight. He changed them, I kept whispering. He locked me out. He locked me out. Shh, Martin. Let me handle this, Valerie said. A new voice came on the line, deeper, more serious. Mr. Martin, Ms. Valerie, this is David Chen from the Senior Client Protection Unit. I understand you have some concerns about the accounts. The next 30 minutes were an agonizing ordeal. David Chen put me through a grueling verification process. My full social security number, my address from 20 years ago, my mother's maiden name, my late wife Diane's maiden name, the exact date I opened my first account with them sometime back in the 1980s. I stumbled. I stammered. I grasped at memories blurred by grief and time. Valerie sat next to me, feeding me answers, coaching me, her hand gripping my arm. The address in Tucson, Martin. Remember before you moved to Sun City? Finally, after I correctly identified the amount of my last mortgage payment from 2005. David Chen seemed satisfied. Thank you, Mr. Martin. You are verified. I apologize for the difficulty. Now, how can I help? Valerie leaned into the phone, her eyes like chips of ice. Mr. Chen, we need the current balances on all of Mr. Martin's accounts, checking savings and all retirement and investment portfolios. I held my breath. I could hear David typing. Okay, he said slowly, and I heard the hesitation in his voice. The primary checking account has a current balance of $150.12. I started, but Valerie put a hand up to silence me. And the retirement portfolio, she asked, her voice flat. The one from Lockheed Martin. It should have a balance of approximately $800,000. Another pause. More typing. Ma'am, according to our records, that retirement account, it has a balance of $2,000. I couldn't breathe. The room started to spin. What? I gasped. No, that's impossible. 800,000. Valerie, I said, grabbing her arm. He said, Ryan said he moved it to a trust. Ask him about the trusts. It's safe. He said it's safe. Valerie's face was white. Mr. Chen, she said, her voice shaking with rage. Where did the money go? We need to see the large recent transactions from that portfolio. I see, David said, his voice now full of alarm. I see a liquidation of the full portfolio, approximately $798,000, executed 6 months ago. The funds were then transferred out. Transferred where? Valerie demanded. One large wire transfer, ma'am, for $50,000. It was sent to a M&R Investments. M&R, I whispered. And, oh, David said. This is unusual. I see another transfer from the same transaction. A check was cut directly from the account for $25,000. It was made payable to Megan, consulting fee. I didn't hear anything else. The room went dark at the edges. I stumbled back and fell heavily onto the cheap, lumpy mattress of my rented bed. The room was spinning. M and R, Megan and Ryan. A consulting fee. Megan. It wasn't an investment. It wasn't protection. It was theft. I heard Valerie's voice, distant and cold, as if from the end of a long tunnel. Thank you, Mr. Chen. We will need you to freeze every single one of these accounts immediately. She hung up the phone. She stood there for a long time in the silence, her back to me. Finally, she turned. Her face was a mask of cold fury. Martin, she said, her voice devoid of all emotion. He's not managing your money. He's stealing it. I was still sitting on that lumpy mattress, the words, Megan, consulting fee, echoing in my head. The room was spinning. I felt like I was going to be sick. My son. My son. He hadn't just managed my money. He had looted it. He had plundered my entire life's work. Valerie didn't comfort me. She didn't sit down and hold my hand. She was a CPA, and she had just found the gaping hole in the ledger. She was in battle mode. Martin, she snapped. Her voice was so sharp it cut through my fog. Get up, now! I can't, I whispered. Val, he took everything. $800,000. He took nothing yet. She countered, her voice like iron. It's just numbers on a screen. We are getting it back. Get up, we're leaving. Leaving where? You cannot stay here, she said, already grabbing my old coat from the back of the chair and throwing it at me. This place isn't secure. It's not clean. And we need a war room. We are not victims, Martin. We are clients. And we are about to hire the meanest shark in Phoenix. She grabbed my arm and hauled me to my feet. I just moved on autopilot. She packed my few belongings, my pills, my toothbrush, my picture of Diane into my old duffel bag in less than 60 seconds. She grabbed her own high-end suitcase, steered me out the door, and didn't look back. She didn't take my old Taurus. She left it parked on the street. She used her phone, and within 2 minutes, another black Uber sedan was there. Where are we going? I asked, my voice numb as we slid into the back seat. First, we're getting your medicine. The real medicine. Our first stop was the CVS. Valerie walked in, paid for my Xarelto and Lisinopril, a 3-month supply with her own corporate credit card. She handed me the bag. Take it, she ordered. I did, my hands trembling as I held the full, heavy bottles. Our second stop was a Residence Inn in North Scottsdale. It was clean, modern, and anonymous. I'm booking a suite with a kitchen for 1 week, she told the front desk. Under my name. We got to the room. It was beautiful. A real bed, a clean kitchen, a living room area. Sit, she said, pointing to the couch. Don't move, I have a call to make. I just sat there, clutching my bag of medicine, watching my sister. She was a force of nature. She wasn't grieving for the family we'd lost. She was preparing for the war we were about to start. She pulled out her laptop and her phone. Who is the best elder financial abuse attorney in Phoenix? She muttered to herself, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Google is too slow. I'll use my network. She dialed a number. Greg Valerie. I'm in Phoenix. I need a name. The biggest, baddest shark you know in probate and elder fraud litigation. Money is no object. She listened, writing down a name on a hotel notepad. Ms. Shaw. Shaw. Got it. Thank you, Greg. I owe you one. She hung up and immediately dialed the new number. Yes, I need to speak to Ms. Shaw, Valerie said into the phone, her voice dropping into that formal, professional tone. Tell her Valerie CPA is calling regarding an urgent matter of multi-million-dollar elder fraud. Yes, I'll hold. I watched amazed. She was completely in her element. This was what she did. She found the cracks, and she fixed them. Ms. Shaw, thank you for taking my call. My name is Valerie. I am a CPA, and I am here with my brother Martin, a 70-year-old retired engineer. His son, acting as power of attorney, has just liquidated his $800,000 retirement fund and transferred it to shell companies, including one named after his own wife. He has also been systematically draining his $15,000 a month pension and left my brother with no money for food or heart medication. We have bank confirmation. We need you. How soon can you meet? Valerie listened, nodding. This afternoon at 4 p.m. Perfect. We will be there. She hung up and finally looked at me. The fury was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Okay, Martin, she said. We have the best. Now we wait. That afternoon, we walked into the plushest law office I'd ever seen. It was all glass and dark wood high above the city. We were shown into a conference room. A woman in her 50s walked in carrying a single leather folder. She wasn't flashy. She wore a simple dark blue dress, pearls, and a gaze that could cut steel. This was Ms. Shaw. Mr. Martin, Ms. Valerie. She said, her voice calm and measured. Valerie, your reputation precedes you. Martin, I am deeply sorry for what you're experiencing. We spent an hour laying out everything we knew. The POA, the fake Excel sheet, the phone call with David Chen at the bank, the M&R investments, the Megan consulting fee. Ms. Shaw listened, her face impassive. She didn't take notes. She just absorbed everything. When I finished, she sat back, tapping her pen on her folder. This is bad, she said, her voice flat. But it's not hopeless. Here is our problem. She leaned forward. The power of attorney. That document is our biggest hurdle. Ryan will claim he had full authority to move those funds. He will say M&R Investments was a high-risk tech startup. He believed in a legitimate investment that simply failed. He'll say the consulting fee to his wife was for her work in researching that investment. He will paint you, Martin, as a forgetful old man who agreed to an aggressive strategy and then got buyer's remorse. But that's fraud, I insisted. It's fraud to us, Ms. Shaw corrected. In a courtroom without concrete proof of his intent to steal, it's just a bad investment made by an authorized agent. It's his word against yours. And you already admitted you were too grief-stricken to read what you signed. I felt the hope drain out of me. So it's over. He just wins. He just takes it all. Valerie, who had been silent, finally spoke. She looked at Ms. Shaw. Then it's not enough to show he did it, Valerie said, her eyes narrowing. We need to prove he knew it was wrong. We need to prove criminal intent. Ms. Shaw was a woman of terrifying efficiency. She didn't just accept my story, she acted on it. Using the preliminary report from the bank's fraud department, the one David Chen had initiated, she filed an emergency motion. She didn't just ask Chase. She got a court order compelling a full financial discovery linked to my social security number. He will discover the accounts are frozen. Martin, she warned me, her voice crisp over the phone. He will likely call you furious. Do not answer. Do not speak to him. Not one word. Am I clear? Yes, ma'am, I whispered. Good. The first documents are here. I need you and Valerie back in my office. Now. We sat in that same glass conference room. The view of the Phoenix skyline felt different now. It didn't look like a city. It looked like a jungle. Ms. Shaw didn't just have a folder this time. She had a stack of papers nearly 3 inches thick, bound by a heavy rubber band. This, she said, dropping the stack onto the polished mahogany table with a heavy thud, is not your investment portfolio. That part is complex. The web of shell companies will take weeks to untangle. This is your credit history. I was confused. My credit is perfect. I've always paid my bills. I only have one card, the Visa, the one that keeps getting declined. Ms. Shaw looked at me, her face unreadable. No, Martin, you had one card. According to this report I pulled from Experian this morning, you currently have 4. Valerie, who had been silent, leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What kind of cards? Store cards? Gas cards? No, Ms. Shaw said. She slid the top packet of statements across the table. 3 American Express Centurion cards. The black card, I just stared. I'd heard of those. I'd seen them on television. Cards for billionaires, for movie stars. But how? I stammered. You have to be invited. You have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Exactly, Ms. Shaw said, which you don't. But what you do have, Martin, is 40 years of perfect, unblemished credit. You have a massive pension and a multi-million-dollar asset portfolio, or at least you did. You were the perfect candidate. Ryan applied in your name using your financial data and his power of attorney. You were approved instantly, for all three. Valerie snatched the statements. Her face, already pale, turned a ghostly white. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Her eyes just scanned the pages line by line, faster and faster. I could see her hand, the one holding the papers, begin to shake. "My God," she whispered. "What?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What is it?" Valerie looked up, her eyes no longer just angry. They were burning with a cold, pure hatred. He made Megan an authorized user, on all three cards." She started to read, her voice flat, as if she were reading a list of casualties. Date October 10th. Merchant Chanel, Scottsdale Fashion Square. Amount $12,000. I pictured the black quilted purse Megan had been carrying, the one Diane had dreamed of. Date October 22nd. Valerie continued, her finger sliding down the page, her voice trembling with rage. Merchant Emirates Airlines. Amount $20,000. 2 first-class tickets to Dubai. Date November 1st. Merchant the St. Regis Aspen. Amount $8,000. She let out a sound, a sharp, choked laugh of disbelief. They went skiing. While you were worried about your electric bill, Martin, they were in Aspen. She threw the papers down. It goes on and on. Jewelry, spas, restaurants I've never even heard of. The total outstanding balance, the debt in your name, Martin, across all three cards, is $250,000. $250,000 in debt. A cold realization hit me so sharp it made me gasp. "The car," I said, my voice barely audible. Valerie looked at me. "What car?" The white Maserati, in their driveway. I thought they leased it." Valerie grabbed the second statement, her hands tearing through the pages. She found it. Her finger jabbed the line item. "You're right. A recurring monthly charge. Maserati Financial Services. $2,000. Every month. For the last 6 months. Charged directly to your American Express card." I slumped back in the expensive leather chair. It was no longer just about the pension. It wasn't about the $800,000 he invested. This was different. This was calculated. This was cruel. He hadn't just put me in a cheap apartment. He hadn't just cut off my allowance. He had taken my name, my perfect credit score, my 40 years of hard work and financial discipline, and he had handed it to his wife like a blank check. He had turned my good name into their personal piggy bank. He was living like a king on my reputation, while I was sitting in the dark, unable to afford the medicine that was keeping me alive. The last shred of doubt, the tiny whispering voice that said, "Maybe it's all a misunderstanding." It died right there in that conference room under the glare of the fluorescent lights. I felt numb. The $250,000 in debt was so enormous I couldn't fully grasp it. It was like hearing a number in an astronomy class. But Valerie understood it. She was vibrating with a silent, controlled rage. Ms. Shaw, however, was already moving on. She was methodical, like a surgeon. "The credit cards are bad, Martin," she said, her voice sharp, pulling me from my daze. "They establish a clear pattern of intent to defraud. But they aren't the primary asset. The pension was the cash flow. Now we need to look at your capital." Valerie looked up, her face pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean the house," Ms. Shaw said, her eyes fixed on me. "The house in Sun City. The one you shared with Diane for 30 years. Is it still in your name?" "Of course it is," I said, my voice rising in defense. I paid that house off in 1999. It's mine. It's all I have left of her. It's where she... I couldn't finish. Ms. Shaw didn't soften. That power of attorney is a powerful, dangerous weapon, Martin. Credit cards are one thing. Real estate is another. She picked up her desk phone, her movements precise. Get me Jeffries, she said to her assistant. I don't care if he's in court. Tell him it's Shaw. It's an emergency priority. She put the phone on hold, the small red light blinking in the quiet room. Who is Jeffries? I asked. He's our forensic investigator, Ms. Shaw replied. A private investigator who specializes in one thing, digging through public records. If Ryan has so much as sneezed near your deed of trust, Jeffries will find it. The phone clicked. Jeffries, she said, all business. I need a full title and property search. Maricopa County. The client is Martin. I'm sending you his details right now. I need to know the status of his primary residence in Sun City. I want to know about any liens, any transfers, any encumbrances filed in the last 24 months. Yes, that fast. Bill my account. She hung up. The wait was the worst part. The next hour was agony. Valerie and I just sat in that sterile conference room. The only sound was the faint whoosh of the air conditioning, and Valerie, under her breath, quietly reading more items from the Amex statements. $1,200 on shoes, she muttered. I tried to think about Diane's garden, the rose bushes she loved, the smell of the jasmine after a rain. Our home. Ms. Shaw's phone buzzed on the table. The vibration made me jump. She looked at the caller ID. It's Jeffries. She put the call on speakerphone. What do you have? She asked. A gravelly, tired voice came through the speaker. You're not going to like this, Shaw. I felt my stomach clench. Valerie gripped the arm of her chair. Just say it, Jeffries, Ms. Shaw said. The property in Sun City, the voice crackled. Well, it's not really his anymore. At least the equity isn't. 6 months ago, a reverse mortgage was filed against the property. Valerie shot up from her chair. What? That's impossible. You have to be 62. Martin is 70. But Ryan isn't. Doesn't matter if the son isn't, Jeffrey's voice said. The owner is. Ryan used the power of attorney as Martin the owner to sign the documents. It's all legal on paper. It's signed Martin by his attorney, in fact, Ryan. I couldn't feel my hands. A reverse mortgage, I whispered. I don't understand. What does that mean? Ms. Shaw closed her eyes for a brief, painful second. How much, Jeffries? She asked, her voice grim. Did he take a line of credit or? No, Jeffries replied. He maxed it out. A single lump sum payout. $500,000. Transferred out 6 months ago. Valerie let out a sound like she'd been punched in the gut. 500,000. Ms. Shaw hung up the call. She turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met her, her professional mask cracked. She looked genuinely horrified. Martin, she said, speaking slowly, as if to a child who had just been struck. Ryan took your house. The house you owned completely. He used the POA and signed papers claiming you wanted to take a loan out against its value. She took a deep breath. A reverse mortgage means the bank gives you the equity in cash. And when you pass away or move out, the bank takes the house. They sell it to pay back the loan. She paused, letting the words sink in. They didn't just sink. They hit me like a physical blow. He didn't just borrow against it, Martin. He sold it. He sold it out from under you. That $500,000, that's the money that went into M&R investments. He didn't just drain your pension, Martin. He cashed out your life. The credit cards were a violation. The pension theft was a betrayal. This was an execution. This was my home. This was Diane's garden. This was the room she passed away, in the room I still kept just as she liked it. This was the one single place on earth that was mine, that was ours. And my son had sold it. He had sold it for cash. He had sold my wife's memory. He had sold my entire life, everything we had ever built together, to fund his wife's shopping sprees and his fake empty company. I didn't say anything. I just stood up, my legs feeling like wood. I walked to the massive glass window of the law office and looked down at the tiny busy cars 10 floors below. I felt nothing. I was completely, utterly hollow. He sold her garden. I whispered the words, barely audible. He sold Diane's memory. Behind me, I heard Valerie start to cry. It wasn't the soft, sad cry of grief. It was the harsh, dry, angry sob of someone who had just witnessed true evil. I was completely numb. I just stood at that window, staring down at the city, seeing nothing. Diane's garden. He sold her roses. He sold the walls that held our entire life. The $250,000 on the credit cards was an insult. The $500,000 from the reverse mortgage. That was a violation of something sacred. It felt like he had dug up her grave. Behind me, I heard Valerie take a shaky breath, trying to pull herself together. She was wiping her eyes, not with sadness, but with pure, unadulterated rage. Ms. Shaw broke the silence. Her voice was steady, but it had an edge now, a cold anger that matched Valerie's. "Martin, Valerie, that's the house. That's the primary capital. But we are not done." Valerie turned her head slowly. What do you mean we're not done? What else is there?" "The retirement fund was the IRA, Ms." Shaw said, ticking points off on her fingers. "The house was the real estate. What about his non-retirement investments? Martin, did you have a separate brokerage account? Stocks, bonds?" I turned from the window, my mind slow, foggy. "Stocks," I said, my voice hoarse. Yes, I had stocks. I had my Apple shares from the early 2000s, and my Boeing stock from working at Lockheed. I've had them for decades. I never touched them. I was saving them." My voice cracked. "I was saving them for the grandkids, for their college." Valerie's eyes, which had been wet with angry tears, suddenly went wide with a new, fresh horror. "The E-Trade account," she whispered. She scrambled for her laptop, which was still open on the conference table. She spun it around to face me. "Martin," she said, her voice frantic, urgent. "What was the login for that one? Don't tell me he changed that one too." "No," I said, trying to clear my head. The memory was foggy. "No, Ryan. He didn't know about that account. I set it up separately. Years ago, I never mentioned it. The password, I think I remember the password." I stumbled over to the table, leaning over her shoulder. The E-Trade login screen glowed at me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely aim my finger at the keyboard. It was Diane's name," I whispered. "Diane, and our anniversary, 1975. Valerie typed it in. Diane 1975. She hit enter. The screen buffered for a second, and then it loaded. The main summary page. I stared at it. Valerie stared at it. I didn't understand. The graphs were all flat. The pie chart was just a solid, empty circle. The total account value at the top of the screen read $112.40. "No," I said. "No, that's wrong. It's a mistake. It was almost $300,000. Where is it? Where is the Boeing stock? Where is the Apple?" Valerie didn't answer. She was clicking, her movements fast and sharp. She clicked on transaction history. The page loaded. She scrolled down. Past October. Past September. She stopped. Her finger reached out and touched the screen. There, she said. Her voice was a dead, hollow monotone. Date August 14th, 3 months ago. Transaction type liquidation. Full sale of 500 shares Apple Incorporated. Full sale of 200 shares the Boeing Company. She scrolled to the next line. Date August 15th. Transaction type wire transfer out. Beneficiary M&R Investments LLC. Amount $310,422. I grabbed the back of the chair. My legs gave out. But he didn't have the password, I said, my voice pleading. How could he? I never told him. The POA, Ms. Shaw said, her voice grim. He didn't need your password, Martin. He just had to fax the power of attorney to E-Trade's legal department. They would be legally obligated to give him immediate total access. He could override any password you set. He could do anything he wanted. I was paralyzed. The grandkids' college money, I whispered. I looked at Valerie, my eyes begging her to tell me it wasn't true. He took that too. He took everything. Where did it all go? Ms. Shaw stood up. She walked over to a large white drawing board on the conference room wall and uncapped a black marker. It all went to the same place, Martin, she said. It all went to M&R Investments, Ryan and Megan. She began to write, her handwriting clear and sharp. Let's add this up, she said, her voice the only sound in the room. First, he opens 3 American Express Centurion cards in your name. He and Megan rack up $250,000 in debt. Vacations, jewelry, a Maserati. She wrote $250,000. Second, she continued writing on the next line. He uses your perfect credit and your advanced age to file for a reverse mortgage on your paid-off home. He takes a full lump sum payout, $500,000. He wires it straight to his shell company. She wrote $500,000. Third, she said, her voice like a hammer striking an anvil. He finds your brokerage account, the money you were saving for your grandchildren. He liquidates all of it, $310,000, and wires it straight to the same shell company. She wrote $310,000. She drew a thick, angry line under the numbers. That, Martin, is $1,060,000 of your capital assets. Stolen, gone, laundered through his personal slush fund. Valerie, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally spoke. Her voice was a hollow whisper. And that's just the capital. Don't forget the cash flow. Ms. Shaw nodded grimly. She wrote another number. She's right. For 2 years, 24 months. He has also been draining your pension. $15,000 a month. That is another $360,000. She added it to the total. Then she drew a final circle around the bottom line. $1,420,000. $1,420,000. I just stared at the number on the whiteboard. It didn't seem real. That is what they have stolen from you, Martin, Ms. Shaw said, putting the cap back on her marker with a sharp click. And in exchange, they gave you $50 a week to live on. They left you in a slum, unable to buy your own heart medicine, while they drove your Maserati and vacationed in Dubai on your credit. She turned and looked me right in the eye. This wasn't mismanagement. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. A cold, systematic plan to liquidate you. I just stared at that number on the whiteboard. $1,420,000. It was an abstract, impossible figure. It represented my home, my retirement, my wife's memory, my grandchildren's future. And it was all gone laundered into M&R Investments. I sank back into the leather chair, the fight draining out of me. So, that's it, I whispered. He wins. He took it all. What can we do? He had the POA. I signed it. Miss Shaw put the cap on her marker with a sharp click. The sound snapped me back. She turned to me, her eyes laser-focused. This is where we begin, Martin, not where we end. But you must understand the battlefield. She sat down. Here is our reality. We can file a civil suit for recovery of funds. We absolutely will. But Ryan will fight back. And his defense will be simple, brutal, and effective. Valerie leaned forward, her face a mask of cold fury. What defense? He stole it. Did he? Ms. Shaw countered, her voice sharp. Or did he invest it? He had a fully executed durable power of attorney. He will claim that he, as your designated agent, decided to move your assets into high-yield private equity funds. That's what he'll call M&R investments. He will say the consulting fee to his wife was for her work in researching these opportunities. He will say the credit cards were an advance on your future profits. But that's a lie, I protested, my voice weak. It's his word against yours, Ms. Shaw said flatly. He will paint you as a forgetful, grieving 70-year-old man who doesn't understand modern finance. He will claim you verbally agreed to this aggressive strategy and then panicked when you saw the short-term numbers. He will say you are confused. He will say you are senile. In court, with that POA, it becomes a very, very messy, he said, case. And it is very, very hard to prove. The air left the room. She was right. Ryan had already been calling me confused. He had been setting this narrative for 2 years. He had me trapped. I looked at Valerie. Her face was grim. I saw the same defeat in her eyes that I felt in my chest. We had the evidence of the what, but not the why. We couldn't prove the intent. Valerie was silent for a long time, just staring at the whiteboard. The $1,420,000. Unless, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Ms. Shaw and I both looked at her. Unless, Valerie said again, her voice gaining strength, her eyes turning from defeated to calculating. Unless we get him to admit it. Unless we prove the intent came from his own mouth. Ms. Shaw leaned forward, interested. Go on? He thinks he's won, Valerie said, a cold, slow smile spreading across her face. It was a terrifying smile. He thinks his father is a clueless old man. He thinks I'm just a meddling old woman. He's arrogant. He's sloppy. He got caught bragging about it on the Amex statements. He's so high on his own success he can't see the cliff. She turned to me. Martin, we need to use that. We need to use his arrogance against him. What are you talking about? I asked. We're going to set a trap, Valerie said. We're going to throw a party. I just stared at her. A party? Val, did you hear what she just said? He stole my house. I'm living in a hotel. I'm not throwing a party. Yes, you are, she insisted. You are going to host a small family gathering. You'll use your old apartment. You'll say it's, I don't know, your birthday or, oh God, even better. You'll say it's to celebrate your and Diane's anniversary. That's sick, Val. It's brilliant, Ms. Shaw interrupted, catching on immediately. It's the perfect cover. A sentimental, grieving old man. Valerie nodded. You're going to call Ryan. You're going to apologize to him. You're going to say, I flew in, I confused you. I got you all worked up over nothing, but now you understand. You're going to play the part of the grateful, clueless, senile old man exactly as he sees you. I looked at my hands. They were shaking. I can't. I can't look at him, Val. I can't pretend to thank him. Not after this. Not after what he did to Diane's garden. Yes, Valerie said, her voice dropping, becoming hard as iron. You can. And you will. Do you want your house back? Do you want your life back? Do you want to see that Maserati in his driveway towed away? Then you will do this. You will invite them over. You will make them feel safe. You will make them feel smarter than everyone in the room. You will praise Ryan in front of witnesses for how wonderfully he is managing your finances. I looked up the horrible, brilliant, sickening plan, crystallizing in my mind. You? You want them to get arrogant? I said. You want them to brag, to confess. Exactly, Valerie said, her eyes gleaming. I want them to admit on tape what they did. I want them to hang themselves with their own hubris. I'll be there, Martin. I'll be sitting right next to you, playing the part of the meddling sister who just doesn't get it. And my purse will be on the table, and my phone will be recording every single word. I left Ms. Shaw's office with the whiteboard numbers seared into my brain. $1,420,000. I went back to the Residence Inn, but I didn't rest. I just sat on the clean, quiet sofa, the silence of the hotel room somehow louder than the chaos in my head. Valerie was across from me, sipping a hotel coffee, her face like granite. He'll be expecting a call, Martin, she said, her voice quiet. He's discovered his accounts are frozen. He's panicking. He's going to assume you're the one who did it. He's going to be angry. You have to call him first. And say what? I whispered. How do I even talk to him? You play the part, she said, her voice cold. The part he wrote for you. You are the confused, grieving, senile old man. You are sorry. You are scared. And you blame me. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I looked at the picture of Diane I'd placed on the nightstand. Okay, I said. For her. For the garden. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over Ryan's name. I pressed it. He picked up on the very first ring. He didn't say hello. Dad, he barked. His voice wasn't breezy or professional. It was sharp, terrified, and furious. Dad, what the hell did you do? I let my voice crack. I didn't have to fake the tremor. Ryan. Son, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Sorry, he yelled. My accounts are frozen, the bank is citing a fraud report. My fraud report. They said you called them. What did you tell them? I didn't, I cried, letting the panic sound genuine. I didn't do it. It was your Aunt Valerie. There was a stunned silence on the other end. What did you say? It was Valerie. I pushed on the lie, feeling disgusting and powerful at the same time. She flew in last night. She found me. She saw the apartment. She got all worked up, Ryan. She doesn't understand this volatile market like you said. She got in my head. She said that you were stealing from me. I could hear him breathing fast and shallow. That bitch, he muttered low and vicious. She dragged me to her lawyer this afternoon. I continued feeding him the story. It all happened so fast. She was making calls. I think she called the bank. I told her no. I told her you were protecting me, but she wouldn't listen. She thinks I'm senile. She's trying to take over. Another long pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he processed this new, convenient narrative. The relief in his voice when he spoke again was palpable. I knew it. He breathed, his arrogance returning instantly. I knew it was her, Dad. I told you she was judgmental. I told you she complicates things. She's old school. She doesn't understand modern asset protection. She's trying to undermine me. I know, son, I know, I said, forcing a sob. I'm so sorry. I told her lawyers to stand down. I told them I trust you. I trust you, Ryan. I know you're doing what's best for me. Good, Ryan said, his voice smoothing out, his authority returning. He was back in control. That's good, Dad. You stay away from her. Don't sign anything she gives you. Let me handle this. I'll call the bank's legal department. I'll get this POA mess sorted out and unfreeze everything. I'll take care of Aunt Valerie. My blood ran cold at how that sounded, but I pushed on. Okay, son. Okay. I took a breath. This was the moment. Listen, I feel just terrible about all this. About the whole mess. And next Saturday, it's mine and your mother's anniversary. I let my voice break completely. He was quiet. Yeah, Dad. I know. I just want us to be a family. I said the lie tasting like acid. I want to make it right. Could you and Megan come over to my apartment just for a simple dinner? Valerie is still here and I want her to see. I want us to show her that we're a united front, that you are taking care of me. I want us to reconcile. There was another long pause. I could hear him thinking, weighing the angles. To your apartment, Dad. His voice was laced with disdain. It's a little cramped, isn't it? Why don't we go out? I'll take everyone to Mastro's. No, I said a little too fast. I softened my voice, forcing the confused old man back. No, please, son, I don't want to go out. I want to be home. Even if it's this home. Just family. I'll have Valerie order some nice Mexican food from El Chorro, like we used to. Please, Ryan, for your mother's memory. The mother card was the final brutal move, and it worked. He sighed a long, deep, suffering sigh. The sigh of a man burdened by an incompetent father and a meddling aunt. Okay, Dad, he said. Okay, if it means that much to you. We'll be there. It'll be good. It'll give me a chance to explain things to Aunt Valerie, in person, to clear the air. He thought he was walking in to give a lecture. He had no idea he was walking into his own execution. Thank you, son, I whispered. 7 o'clock, Saturday. Thank you. It means the world to me. I hung up the phone, my hand slick with sweat. I looked at Valerie. She was smiling, but it wasn't a nice smile. He's coming, I said, my voice hollow. He took the bait. Good, Ms. Shaw said from the other side of the room. She was already on her laptop. That gives us time. I watched as she drafted an email to her assistant. Helen, she dictated to her phone's voice memo. I need 2 documents drafted, notarized, and ready for signature by Monday morning. First, a full, immediate, and irrevocable revocation of power of attorney for Martin. And second, an emergency petition for an ex parte asset freeze on M&R Investments LLC and all known accounts belonging to Ryan and Megan. I want it ready to file the second we have the confession. Saturday night, the apartment was as clean as it could be, which wasn't saying much. You can't scrub out the smell of decades of dampness and cheap paint. But Valerie had tried. She had covered the stained card table with a nice linen tablecloth she'd bought at Target, and the smell of the catering almost masked the mildew. Trays of food from El Chorro covered my small counter: green corn tamales, cheese enchiladas, fresh salsa, and guacamole. It was Diane's favorite. The thought of using her memory as bait made me feel sick, but I just looked at the signed revocation of power of attorney. Sitting in Ms. Shaw's office waiting for Monday. I had to see this through. Valerie was wearing a baggy beige cardigan sweater. It was hideous. It looked like something a confused old woman would wear. It was the perfect camouflage. Underneath, I knew, was her sharp blue pantsuit. And in the pocket of that ugly cardigan, her iPhone was already recording. Our witnesses arrived first, Bill and Sandra. They had been our neighbors in Sun City for 20 years. They'd played cards with Diane and me. They were good, honest people, and I was lying to them. Martin, it's so good to see you, Sandra said, hugging me. She looked around the tiny apartment, her eyes wide with a pity she was trying to hide. This is, this is a very cozy place you've found. It's just temporary, I mumbled, feeling the shame rise again. While Ryan manages my portfolio. Oh yes, Bill said, patting my back. A smart boy, that Ryan. Always was. Good he's looking after you. Valerie greeted them, playing the perfect hostess. Bill, Sandra. Thank you for coming. Martin was just so insistent we get everyone together. A little family reconciliation. They beamed. They thought this was a good thing. Then at 7:30, 45 minutes late, they arrived. The sound of the Maserati's engine, loud and obnoxious in our quiet, poor parking lot, announced their arrival. I buzzed them in. I heard their footsteps on the thin stairs. Megan's heels clicked in a sharp, angry rhythm. Ryan's heavy, expensive shoes thudded. They were already annoyed. I opened the door. They stood there, framed in the peeling doorway, and the contrast was almost comical. They looked like movie stars who had taken a wrong turn into a slum. Ryan was in a dark, tailored suit that probably cost $3,000, no tie, his shirt open. Megan was poured into a tight, emerald green silk dress. Diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. Megan's perfectly sculpted nose wrinkled. I saw her eyes flick to the water stain on the ceiling, the crack in the wall, the worn-out linoleum. She was visibly disgusted. "Dad," she said, her voice strained. She didn't move to hug me. She just stepped inside, careful not to let her silk dress brush against the dirty doorframe. "Ryan, Megan, you're here," I said, my voice sounding weak. "Sorry we're late, Dad," Ryan said, not sounding sorry at all. He gave me a quick one-armed hug, patting my back in that condescending way, as if comforting a dog. The traffic from Scottsdale was just unbelievable. He looked around the room, a small pitying smile on his face. "Wow, this is really where you're staying, huh? We've got to find you something better than this." "Oh, nonsense," Valerie chirped, bustling over her ugly cardigan flapping. She was carrying a bottle of expensive-looking red wine. "It's not about the place, it's about the people. Ryan, Megan, so good to see you. Come in, let me get you a drink." She was brilliant. She was playing the part of the bubbly, slightly dim-witted, harmless old aunt to perfection. Ryan and Megan visibly relaxed. They saw her in her frumpy sweater, and with her overly cheery smile, and they dismissed her. She was no threat. "Aunt Valerie," Ryan said, taking the glass of wine she poured. "Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding." "Oh, I'm sure," Valerie laughed, a high fake trill. "All this talk about banks and fraud, it just goes right over my old head. That's why we have smart financial men like you, Ryan." She handed a brimming glass to Megan, who looked at it with suspicion, as if it might be contaminated. "Drink up, dear, we're celebrating to family." We all raised our glasses. Bill and Sandra beaming, thinking this was a reconciliation. Me, my hand shaking, my heart hammering. And Ryan and Megan, their faces smug, already tasting victory, believing they were here to put the confused old relatives back in their place. "To family." Ryan repeated, his eyes meeting mine over the rim of his glass. His smile was all teeth. We sat around the small, wobbling card table. It was dangerously overcrowded with the large aluminum catering trays, bottles of wine, and plastic cups. Ryan and Megan, I noted, hadn't touched the tamales or the enchiladas. They were, however, drinking the expensive red wine Valerie had brought, drinking it quickly, as if it were water. Ryan was holding court. He was leaning back in his flimsy metal chair, one arm draped over the back, a picture of casual, arrogant success. He was explaining some complex financial concept to Bill, our old neighbor, who was listening with a look of polite confusion. "You see, Bill," Ryan was saying, swirling his wine, "the modern market isn't about just saving anymore. That's what my dad's generation did. It's about aggressive asset protection. It's about trusts, about high-yield funds. You have to be proactive." "Oh, absolutely," Bill nodded, not understanding a word. Megan, who had been silent for the first hour, was on her third glass of wine. Her initial disgust with the apartment had melted into a loose, giggling arrogance. She was showing Sandra the diamond earrings glittering at her ears. "Ryan got them for me," she slurred just a little. "Just because. He's so good to me." "It's just so wonderful," Sandra said, clasping her hands, her eyes misty. "To see you all together like this. Martin, you're Diane. Oh, she would just be so happy right now." The mention of my wife felt like a physical blow. I looked at Ryan, expecting to see a flicker of shame, a moment of grief. Nothing. He just smiled that broad, handsome, empty smile. "She sure would, Sandra. She always wanted us to be a close family." That was Valerie's cue. I saw her set her jaw. She stood up, her movement a little unsteady, perfectly playing the part of a slightly tipsy, emotional old woman. She held her wine glass high, her ugly beige cardigan slipping off one shoulder. Her face was flushed with fake cheer. I want to make a toast," she announced, her voice high and bright. The room quieted. Ryan and Megan looked up at her, their expressions amused, like adults watching a child. "First," Valerie said, turning to me, her eyes sparkling. I knew it wasn't joy. It was the glint of a hunter's scope. "I want to toast my big brother Martin. He's been through so much, losing his wonderful Diane. And he's just been so strong through it all. We're all so proud of you, Martin." "To Martin," Bill said, raising his plastic cup. I just nodded, trying to look humble and frail, my heart hammering against my ribs. "But," Valerie continued, turning her full, beaming attention to Ryan, who preened under her gaze, "I especially want to toast my amazing nephew, Ryan." Ryan's smug smile widened. He sat up straighter, puffing his chest out. Megan looked at him, her eyes shining with drunken adoration. I have to admit," Valerie said, her voice wavering with practiced emotion. "When I first got here, well, I was just so worried. I saw this little apartment and I heard Martin was having trouble with his bills, and I just didn't understand all this complicated finance stuff." She waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. "It just all went right over my old head. But Ryan, you sat me down and you explained it all so well. You are taking such good care of your father. You've been handling his entire massive estate, all that pressure, while he doesn't have to worry about a single thing." She beamed at him. "You are a wonderful son to Ryan." "To Ryan," Bill and Sandra echoed enthusiastically. Ryan's face was flushed with pride. He was glowing. He took a deep sip of his wine, basking in the praise. "Thank you, Aunt Val," he said, his voice smooth and gracious. "That means a lot, especially coming from you." He stood up unsteady for just a second and pulled Megan's hand. It's no trouble at all. Really. It's the least I can do." He looked around at our small audience, at Bill and Sandra, at me. "My father, he worked hard his whole life. He built an empire. He deserves to rest. He deserves to be taken care of. And I'm just happy that I have the skills to make sure his legacy is secure, that it's protected." He looked directly at me, his smile full of pity and condescending love. "Right, Dad. You just rest." I just nodded, my eyes downcast. "Thank you, son. I don't know what I'd do without you." He was completely, totally sold. He believed every word. He was the hero. He was the smart one. He had successfully fooled everyone, including his judgmental aunt. And then Valerie moved in for the kill. She tilted her head, her smile still plastered on, looking at me. "That's just so true. He does deserve to rest." She paused, her eyes scanning the room as if a new confusing thought had just occurred to her. She looked back at me, her expression one of pure, innocent confusion. "But Martin, honey," she said, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper, just loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You do look awfully tired. And, well, this apartment." She looked around, her eyes lingering on the water stain on the ceiling, then on the peeling paint by the door. It's so cozy. Ryan's smile faltered just a fraction. He knew that word. He knew what she meant. Valerie continued oblivious. I'm just a silly old accountant, Ryan, so maybe you can explain it to me. I just keep thinking. My brother worked at Lockheed for 40 years. He was a senior engineer. I know for a fact his pension is $15,000 a month. She paused as if doing math in her head. That's, what, $180,000 a year plus his investments. She looked directly at Ryan, her eyes wide and guileless. I'm just so confused. Why? Why if he has all that money? Is he living in a place like this? I mean, shouldn't he be resting in a nicer place? The air was sucked out of the room. The music from the cheap speaker suddenly sounded too loud. Bill and Sandra, our friends, suddenly looked deeply uncomfortable. Their smiles vanished. They turned their heads slowly from Valerie to Ryan, and then to me sitting there in my worn-out sweater and cheap pants. The party was over. The trap was sprung. Ryan's forced drunken laugh just hung in the stale air. Yeah, he slurred slightly, feeling bold. She's great at that. She handles all the household expenses. It's a complicated system. Our friends Bill and Sandra just nodded politely, still looking completely baffled, trying to do the math. How could a $15,000 a month pension lead to a man living in this hovel? Oh, manage it, Valerie said. The tone of her voice changed. The high-pitched, bubbly, ditzy aunt act evaporated in an instant. Her voice dropped, and when she spoke again, it was low, cold, and carried the weight of a 40-year career in accounting. It was a voice that sliced through boardroom nonsense, and it cut through Ryan's drunken arrogance like a scalpel. She's great at managing it, Valerie repeated. Is that right, Ryan? Ryan, still high on his own performance, missed the shift. He was still trying to recover his footing. Yes, Aunt Val. Exactly. She's very organized. It's a complicated system. I bet it is, Valerie said. She let out a small, sharp laugh that had absolutely no humor in it. I am so glad you brought that up. And then she stood up. Her movement wasn't fussy or old. It was precise, deliberate. In one smooth, shocking motion, she reached up and shrugged off the ugly, baggy beige cardigan sweater. She tossed it onto the back of her chair as if it were a piece of garbage. Underneath, she was wearing a sharp, dark blue executive pantsuit. It was pressed. It was powerful. It was like watching a judge put on her robes. The transformation was so sudden, so absolute, that Ryan actually took an involuntary step back. Megan, who had been admiring her nails, froze her wineglass halfway to her mouth. You know, Ryan, Valerie said, walking to her purse, which sat on the counter. I was so confused by your complicated system. So being the silly old accountant I am, I did a little digging. I've been looking at your father's household fund all week, and the numbers, they don't add up. Ryan's smug smile faltered. Now, Aunt Val, I don't think... Be quiet, she snapped. It wasn't a request. It was a command. She unzipped her bag and pulled out a thick stack of papers, the ones from Ms. Shaw's office. She walked back to the table, and with a thwack that made the wineglasses jump, she dropped the stack right on top of the leftover enchiladas. What is that? Ryan stammered, his bravado finally cracking. This, Valerie said, tapping the top page, is the statement for your father's American Express Centurion card. Oh wait, my mistake. I mean his 3 American Express Centurion cards. The ones you opened in his name using his perfect credit without his knowledge. Bill and Sandra both gasped, their hands flying to their mouths. Ryan went white as a sheet. Dad authorized me, he began. He authorized you, Valerie continued, her voice slicing through his stammering. To spend $12,000 at Chanel, he authorized you to charge $20,000 for first-class tickets to Dubai. Did he authorize the $8,000 at the St. Regis in Aspen? She looked right at Megan, who looked like she had just been struck by lightning. How is the household budget, Megan? Does it really cost $250,000 to manage this family? Because that's the debt in your father's name that you two racked up in 18 months, while he couldn't afford $8 for a can of soup. Ryan was speechless. He was trapped. Bill and Sandra were staring at him with open, unveiled horror. But that's just the credit cards, Valerie said, her voice dropping even lower. That's just the play money. You needed capital, didn't you, Ryan, for your investments? She pulled another document from her bag. So you took your father's power of attorney and you went to the bank and you signed his name on a reverse mortgage for his paid-off house. This time I spoke. My voice was shaking, but I looked at Bill and Sandra, my old friends. He sold my house, I said. The house I shared with Diane. He sold it out from under me. Sandra let out a small, strangled sob. You took $500,000, Ryan, Valerie yelled, her control finally snapping, her voice echoing in the small, terrible room. You took his home, the last piece of his life with his wife, and you wired it all to… Where did it go, Ryan? Where did the $800,000 from his retirement fund go? Where did the $300,000 from his grandchildren's college fund go? All us. Ryan was cornered. He was breathing heavily, his eyes darting between me, Valerie, and the horrified guests. He looked like a trapped rat. You don't understand, he finally shouted, his voice cracking. It was an investment. It was for him. I was protecting his assets. I put it all into M&R Investments. Valerie just stared at him. She waited. She let the pathetic lie hang in the air. M&R Investments, she repeated, her voice dripping with mock curiosity. That sounds so… official. What does that stand for, Ryan? What brilliant company did you find? Martin and Ryan, money and riches. He just stared at her, his face a mask of pure hatred, sweat beading on his forehead. Oh, wait, Valerie said, pulling out the final paper. The bank transfer record from David Chen. Here it is, the M&R examples and the consulting fees, all wired to a shell company, M&R Investments. She looked right at Megan, who was now sobbing, actually sobbing into her hands. What does M&R stand for, Ryan? Tell our friends. He said nothing. Valerie smiled that cold, terrible smile. I'll tell them. It stands for Megan and Ryan. You didn't invest your father's money. You stole it. You laundered $1.5 million of his life savings, his home, and his children's future, directly into your own pocket. Ryan's drunken, confident laugh hitched in his throat. Megan is just very organized, Aunt Val. It's a complicated system. Oh, manage it, Valerie said. The words hung in the stale, heavy air of my tiny apartment. The high-pitched, bubbly, ditzy aunt act vanished. Her voice dropped 2 octaves, becoming cold, flat, and heavy with authority. It was the voice of a chief financial officer who had just found a catastrophic error in an audit, and she was about to find out who was responsible. Ryan, still flushed with wine and self-satisfaction, didn't catch the shift. Yes, exactly, he said, trying to regain his footing. She's very organized. It's a complicated system. I'll bet it is, Valerie said. She let out a short, sharp laugh that was completely devoid of humor. And I am so glad you brought that up. Then she stood up. The movement was not the fussy, unsteady motion of a 68-year-old woman. It was precise, deliberate, and powerful. She reached up with both hands, grabbed the collar of that ugly, baggy beige cardigan sweater, and she shrugged it off. She tossed it onto the back of her chair as if it were a piece of filthy insulation. Underneath, she was wearing a sharp, dark blue executive pantsuit. It was perfectly pressed. It was armor. The transformation was so sudden, so total, that Ryan actually took an involuntary step back. Megan, who had been admiring her nails, froze her wineglass halfway to her mouth. The confused, meddling old aunt was gone. In her place was Valerie, the CPA, and she looked like she was ready to liquidate a failed company. "Aunt Val, what, what are you doing?" Ryan stammered. "What am I doing?" Valerie's voice was like ice. "I'm auditing you, Ryan. I've been looking at your father's household fund all week, and the numbers, they don't add up." She walked to the worn-out counter where her large leather purse sat. She unzipped it, a sharp, aggressive sound, and pulled out a thick stack of papers. She walked back to the table, and with a heavy thwack that made the plastic cups jump, she dropped the stack right on top of the leftover enchiladas. "This," she said, tapping the top page, "is the statement for your father's American Express Centurion card. Oh, wait, my mistake." She fanned the pages, a blur of black and white. "I mean his 3 American Express Centurion cards. The black cards." Our friends Bill and Sandra both gasped. Ryan's face went white as a sheet. I, Dad authorized me," he stammered, looking at me. Valerie ignored him completely. Her eyes, cold and merciless, locked onto Megan. My daughter-in-law was now trembling, her face pale under her expensive makeup. "You're great at managing things, aren't you, Megan?" Valerie asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "So tell me, is it good management to spend $12,000 at Chanel in one afternoon using his name? Is it good management to charge $20,000 for 2 first-class tickets to Dubai?" Megan looked like she was going to be sick. I don't. How about the $8,000 at the St. Regis in Aspen? Was that a household expense? Valerie leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to echo in the sudden, terrible silence. "Tell me, Megan, how does it feel to rack up $250,000 in debt on his credit, while he is sitting in this rat hole unable to afford $8 for a can of soup?" Megan looked like she'd been physically struck. She turned to Ryan, her eyes wide with panic. "Ryan." Then she looked back at Valerie. How did you know?" she whispered. It was the only confession Valerie needed. "That's just the credit cards," Valerie said, dismissing Megan as if she were a bug. Her entire focus now shifted to Ryan. "That's just the play money. But you needed capital, didn't you, Ryan, for your investments?" She pulled another thick document from her purse. "So you took that power of attorney, a document your father signed in grief, and you walked it into a bank. And you signed his name on a reverse mortgage for his fully paid-off home." This time I was the one who spoke. My voice was a hoarse whisper, but I made sure our friends Bill and Sandra heard me. He sold my house. The house I shared with Diane for 45 years. He sold it." Sandra let out a small strangled cry and covered her mouth. $500,000, Valerie spat, hitting each word like a hammer. "You took his home, the last piece of his life with his wife, and you wired it all away." "No," Ryan finally exploded. He lunged forward, pointing a shaking finger at Valerie. "You're lying. You're twisting everything, Dad." He whirled on me, his face purple with rage and panic. "Dad, tell her you authorized it. Tell her you wanted me to invest. Tell her you knew, Dad. Say something." All eyes were on me. Ryan was staring at me, his eyes begging, threatening. I just looked at him. I looked at my son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the man who was now screaming at me to validate his theft. I felt the last bit of my fear burn away, replaced by a cold, hard calm. "Invest, Ryan?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Invest in what?" Valerie smiled. That cold, terrible smile. "He's right, Ryan," she said, pulling out her phone. "We're all dying to know. Where did the $800,000 from the IRA go? Where did the $500,000 from the house go? Where did the $300,000 from the grandkids' college fund go?" She unlocked her phone and held it up. "Oh, wait, I know. They all went to the same place, didn't they? M&R Investments." Ryan froze. His blood drained from his face. That's the company, isn't it? The one you created 2 months after Diane died. I looked up the incorporation papers. Valerie's voice was filled with triumphant contempt. I'm a CPA, you stupid, arrogant little fool. You really thought I wouldn't run a check on the LLC. You really thought I wouldn't notice that M&R just happens to stand for Megan and Ryan. She hit the play button on her phone. And in the dead silent stinking apartment, Ryan's own panicked voice filled the air from the call she'd recorded. Aunt Val, you don't understand. That's private financial information. I'm managing it. He's fine. You're done, Ryan, Valerie said, turning off the recording. You're done. The sound of Ryan's voice captured on the recording faded into the horrified silence of the apartment. Bill and Sandra looked like they had seen a ghost, their faces pale. Ryan was panting, his face a mask of purple, drunken rage and sheer panic. Megan was making small whimpering sounds, her hands clasped over her mouth. Valerie, completely calm, turned back to her large leather purse. She didn't rush. She deliberately zipped it open, reached inside, and pulled out a second file. This one was thinner, just 2 pages held together by a paperclip. She slid it across the greasy tamale trays past the spilled wine that looked like a bloodstain on the white tablecloth. She stopped it right in front of me. Then she took a heavy, expensive-looking pen from her suit pocket and placed it directly on top of the papers. Martin, she said, her voice now quiet, almost gentle, cutting through the thick tension. This is the last step. This is the revocation of power of attorney. She looked me straight in the eye, her gaze steady and strong. This document, the moment you sign it, immediately cancels the POA you signed in your grief. It strips Ryan of all legal authority over you, your money, your home, and your life. It gives you back control, right now. I looked at the paper. I saw the bold letters. I saw the line at the bottom waiting for my name. This was it. This was the moment I took my life back. The shaking in my hands, the fear, the confusion, it all vanished. I felt a cold, clear stillness settle over me. The stillness of absolute certainty. I picked up the heavy pen. It felt solid in my hand, solid and real. No, Ryan screamed. It wasn't a word. It was a roar of pure animal terror. He saw his entire empire, my empire, vanishing in front of his eyes. He lunged. He didn't lunge at Valerie. He lunged at me, at the paper. His hand shot across the table, knocking over a bottle of wine. He was trying to snatch the document before I could sign it, his face contorted. You can't, and he shrieked, his fingers clawing for the paper. He's not competent. He gave it to me. It's mine. Valerie moved so fast it shocked me. She didn't flinch. She grabbed Ryan's wrist midair in a vice grip, her knuckles white. You don't touch him, she hissed. Ryan tried to yank his arm free, but she held firm. Get off me, you old hag! Sit down, Ryan, she commanded, pushing him back with a force I didn't know she possessed. He stumbled, catching his balance on the back of his chair. While he was off balance, I pressed the pen to the paper. And with a steady, clear hand, I signed my name. Martin. A signature I hadn't written with any real authority in 2 long years. It was done. Ryan saw it. He just stared at my signature, his mouth open, his chest heaving, utterly defeated. Valerie let go of his wrist, wiping her hand on her pantsuit, as if she'd just touched something disgusting. She picked up her cell phone from the table, her thumb already moving on the screen. You still don't get it, do you? She said to him, her voice laced with contempt. You think this party was the plan? This was just the appetizer. She held up the phone. This recording, she said, tapping the screen, of you admitting to everything. Your complicated system, your M&R investments, your drunken proud confession that you gave all of his money to your wife. It's already been sent. Emailed 30 seconds ago to Ms. Shaw. Who the hell is Ms. Shaw? Ryan whispered, the last of his fight draining away. She, Valerie said, her voice a final cold nail in his coffin, is your father's new attorney. And at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, that's about 36 hours from now, she is filing this recording, along with the Amex statements, the reverse mortgage documents, and the brokerage liquidations with the Maricopa County Superior Court. She is filing an emergency petition to freeze every single asset you and Megan own. At the mention of her name, Megan, who had been frozen in her chair, made a sound, a long, high-pitched wail like a dying animal. No! No, no, no! She slid sideways off her chair and crumpled onto the dirty linoleum floor in a heap of green silk. She was out cold. Ryan didn't even look at her. He was paralyzed, staring at Valerie, finally understanding the full, horrifying scope of the trap. She will also, Valerie added as a brutal afterthought, be forwarding the entire file, including your household expenses, to her contacts at the IRS. Good luck, Ryan. Good luck explaining how M&R Investments processed $1.5 million in capital with no employees, no office, and no product. Good luck explaining those $250,000 in consulting fees to a federal auditor. Ryan's face contorted. The fake concern, the arrogance, the panic, it all melted away, leaving only pure, unfiltered hatred. He didn't look at Valerie. He looked at me. He pointed a trembling finger, his entire body shaking with rage. You! He seethed, his voice a venomous whisper. You tricked me. You sat here. You played dumb. You lied to me, you old fool, you tricked me. I stood up slowly. I was no longer the frail, confused old man from the CVS parking lot. I looked at my son, the man who had stolen my wife's memory, the man who had left me to die, and I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a vast, cold emptiness. No, son, I said, my voice clear and steady. I didn't trick you. You tricked yourself, the moment you decided I was a fool. The party ended in chaos. Bill and Sandra, our old friends, were pale with shock, their mouths hanging open. Megan was crumpled on the dirty linoleum floor in her green silk dress, a heap of ruined luxury. Ryan just stood there, paralyzed, his face a mask of disbelief and pure animal hatred. Valerie simply picked up her purse from the counter. She stepped over Megan's legs as if she were a discarded rug, her face impassive. She opened the apartment door and held it for me. Our friends Bill and Sandra scrambled to find their coats, muttering apologies, not looking at anyone, and fled into the hallway. I looked one last time at my son, the man who had called me a fool. Then I walked out and closed the door on the wreckage. We spent Sunday in the quiet of the Residence Inn. It was a long, strange, hollow day. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt drained. I sat by the window watching normal families checking in, carrying luggage, laughing, and I wondered if I would ever feel normal again. At 8:01 a.m. on Monday, Valerie's phone chimed with an email notification. She was already dressed in a fresh pantsuit, drinking black coffee. She looked at the screen, took a sip, and nodded, her face grim. "It's done," she said. "Ms. Shaw has filed. The emergency petition is before the judge. The asset freeze is active." I didn't see it happen, of course, but Ms. Shaw painted a very clear picture for us later. I imagined Ryan waking up in his multi-million-dollar mansion, hungover and furious, his head full of legal counter-strategies. I imagined him calling his high-priced lawyer only to find his bank account had insufficient funds to pay the retainer. I imagined him trying to log into the M&R Investments account. Access denied. I imagined Megan waking up with a wine headache, trying to do some comfort shopping at Scottsdale Fashion Square, only to have her American Express Centurion card snipped in two by a nervous cashier. The best part came at noon. Ms. Shaw called us. "Good news," she said, and I could hear the rare cold smile in her voice. "The Maserati lease. It was co-signed using your credit, Martin, to secure the low interest rate. We've flagged it as fraudulent. The leasing company is sending a tow truck to repossess it. As we speak." I closed my eyes. I pictured that gleaming, arrogant white car, the symbol of their theft, being dragged, humiliated out of that pristine paver stone driveway. "And the house?" Valerie asked. The house is the brilliant part, Ms. Shaw replied. The reverse mortgage is in Martin's name, which means the loan is his, but the proceeds went to Ryan. We've filed an immediate lien. He can't sell it. He can't borrow against it. He can't even pay the massive utility bills on it because his accounts are frozen. He is immediately trapped in a palace he doesn't own with no money. A week passed. A week of blessed quiet, agonizing silence. Then they were served. A massive civil lawsuit for the recovery of $1.4 million. They were cornered. Their accounts were frozen. Their assets were locked. Their credit was destroyed. They had nothing. They were exactly as poor, exactly as helpless as they had made me. They requested a settlement conference, Miss. Shaw had us meet in a neutral mediation room, a beige, lifeless box that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. They were already there when we arrived. The change was shocking. Ryan was unshaven, his expensive suit wrinkled his eyes, darting around like a trapped animal. Megan wore a simple black dress, her face puffy from a week of crying, her expensive jewelry gone. They looked cheap. They looked broken. Ms. Shaw didn't waste time on pleasantries. She sat down, opened her file, and looked at them as if they were insects. My client is here to offer you a one-time deal, she said, her voice echoing in the small room. A way to avoid criminal prosecution. Ryan's head snapped up. Criminal, he whispered. Yes, criminal. Valerie cut in her voice like ice. Elder financial abuse, grand theft, wire fraud. The IRS investigation alone could put you both in federal prison for 10 years. We have the recordings. We have the bank statements. We have you dead to rights. Megan let out a small choking sob. However, Ms. Shaw continued, my client Martin is a merciful man. He does not wish to see his son in prison despite your actions. He is willing to forego pursuing criminal charges if you agree to a full and immediate civil restitution. Non-negotiable. She slid a document across the table. The terms are simple. First, you will agree to the immediate court-supervised sale of the Scottsdale property. The proceeds will be used to pay back the $500,000 reverse mortgage you fraudulently obtained. She slid over a second paper. Second, you will liquidate every luxury asset. The watches, the jewelry, the remaining car. The funds will be used to pay off the $250,000 American Express debt. Ryan just stared at the papers, his entire life evaporating. And third, Ms. Shaw said, sliding over a final single piece of paper, you, Ryan, will sign this. It is a full legal admission of wrongdoing. A confession. Acknowledging that you knowingly and without authorization defrauded your father. This document ensures you can never contest this again. And it ensures you will never work in the financial industry again. Ryan looked at the confession. He looked at Megan. He looked at me. It's everything, he whispered, his voice broken. You're taking everything. You're leaving us with nothing. I looked at him. I saw the man who had left me to die in a cold room, the man who had dismissed my suffering. No, Ryan. I said, my voice quiet but harder than steel. I'm not leaving you with nothing. I'm leaving you with exactly what you left me. It's a start. 6 months later. That's how long it took to scrub the stain of Ryan and Megan from my life. 6 months of legal battles, of auditors, of liquidations. 6 months of agonizing, clarifying work. I am not in the Residence Inn anymore. I am not in that cold, damp third-floor room. I am sitting on my own patio. The real patio, the one in Sun City. The one Diana and I built with our own hands 40 years ago. The flagstones are warm under my feet. The air doesn't smell like mildew and despair. It smells like jasmine and freshly cut grass. Her roses. They were nearly dead when I finally got the house back, the yard choked with weeds. I spent the last 2 months bringing them back. They're blooming now. A deep, defiant red. Valerie is sitting across from me, her feet up on the ottoman, sipping an iced tea. She's holding a thick travel brochure, the cover showing a massive white cruise ship against a wall of blue ice. Alaska, she says, tapping the glossy page. A 7-day cruise. Leaves from Seattle. Balcony suite. We've earned it, Martin. It's time you saw something majestic. I'm on my new iPad. The one Valerie bought me. The one she taught me how to use. I'm staring at my Chase private client online portal. I tap the screen and the numbers are all there. The recovered funds from the house sale. The liquidated assets from the Amex investigation. My pension. My full $15,000, which deposited as it should on the first of the month. I've learned to use it. I've learned to check my balance every morning. I've learned to pay my own bills. At 70 years old, I've learned to be independent again. Ryan always told me this was too complicated for me. I say, my voice quiet. He said it was safer if he just handled it. It wasn't complicated for you, Martin, Valerie says, not looking up from her brochure. It was complicated for him, if you knew how to use it. Now stop staring at your money and look at this. They have whale watching. I smile. A real smile. It feels strange, but good. I tap the screen, pay my electric bill online by myself, and put the iPad down. Alaska. It sounds cold. It's not cold, she scoffs, reading my mind. It's majestic. Besides, you can afford a good coat now. I did wonder in the quiet moments what happened to them. Miss Shaw's office, as part of the settlement, sends me updates. Megan, it turned out, couldn't handle the fall. She couldn't handle accountability. The moment the money was gone, the second the Maserati was towed from the driveway, and the black cards were cut in half by a federal marshal, her love for Ryan evaporated. She divorced him. Less than 2 months after the settlement, she filed on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. I heard from Sandra that she fled back to Ohio to live with her mother, telling everyone she was the victim. That Ryan had tricked her, that he had destroyed her life. She never took responsibility for a single Chanel bag. And Ryan, my son, he lost everything. The house, the wife, the career. The SEC, alerted by Ms. Shaw, and the IRS investigation permanently barred him from the financial industry for life. He was bankrupted by the settlement. I saw him. Just once. I was driving my new car, a sensible, safe Subaru Outback. I stopped at a Home Depot over on Thunderbird Road to buy mulch for Diane's garden. And there he was. He was wearing that bright, obnoxiously orange apron. He was a cashier. Ryan. My brilliant, arrogant financial whiz son with his advanced degree and his smug pronouncements. He was scanning barcodes and asking, "Will that be cash or credit?" Our eyes met for just a fraction of a second across the checkout aisle. I saw it all. The hatred, the humiliation, the rage. He looked away first. I just paid for my mulch and walked out. Valerie told me where he's living now. The irony is almost poetic. He's in that same third-floor apartment complex on Bell Road. The one I left. He's living in my old cold room. The one with the broken window and the smell of dampness. He's living on his new budget. It's a perfect reversal. I'm back on my patio. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Valerie has gone inside to make dinner. I walk through my house. My house. It's clean. I had it repainted. I walk down the hall and stop. I stop in front of the large framed photo of Diane, the one from our 40th anniversary. She's smiling, her eyes so bright, so full of life. I reach out, my fingers touching the cool glass. "Oh, Diane," I whisper, my voice thick. "What a mess. What a terrible, awful mess. I lost him, sweetheart," I say to her. "I don't know if that boy I raised, if he was ever really there, or if I just spoiled him into this monster. He's gone, and I have to live with that. I have to live with the fact that I raised a man who could steal your memory, who could leave his own father to die all for a white car and a fancy watch. I lean my head against the wall, the tears finally coming. Not hot, angry tears, just sad, quiet ones. But I found me again. The man I was before I let grief make me weak. The man you married. And I learned something, Diane. I learned the hardest lesson of all. I look at her smiling face. I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't just giving. Sometimes the greatest love is letting them face the consequences, letting them fall, letting them feel the pain they caused. I wipe my eyes. I take a deep breath. I have my house back. I have my life back. And I'm finally, for the first time in 2 long, dark years, I am finally able to rest. I hope, wherever you are, I hope you're proud of me, sweetheart. I finally did the right thing. The biggest lesson is that blind trust, even in immediate family, can lead to devastation. Grief like Martin's makes us vulnerable, and a power of attorney, POA, is a dangerous weapon in the hands of the greedy like Ryan. The story warns us to never ignore red flags like declined cards or financial lies. Never think you are senile or a bother. Greed can destroy a family, but the truth and decisive action like Valerie's are the only way to reclaim justice and dignity. Have you ever felt your trust was exploited by family? Would you choose to fight back like Martin or suffer in silence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.